So I want to give a word about grand juries. Okay, so you have Brandon Stanley, who was shot in Laurel County, and it's supposed to be presented to a grand jury. Well, what's a grand jury, and how is it different than a regular jury? Okay, so here's the way grand jury indictments work. The prosecutor or the Commonwealth's attorney will present a case to 12 local citizens who make up the grand jury, and it's supposed to be randomly chosen, but I would say it's probably like their buddies. But the way it's supposed to work, 12 local citizens randomly chosen are to determine whether or not the case that the prosecutor presents is a felony. And the idea of a grand jury is that it's supposed to be democratic. It's supposed to be used as a firewall against frivolous felony cases. Sometimes grand jury indictments are sort of pushed off to the side because there's a saying, even a ham sandwich can be indicted. Now, the reason why this is important, the idea of it is it's supposed to be a firewall to protect us from some overzealous prosecutor that just wants to put felonies out on everybody. Well, before they can get a person to be convicted of a felony, the grand jury has to indict. So the grand jury doesn't mean anything. An indictment doesn't really mean anything except that it will go to court and it will go before a jury or a bench trial to be tried. So the indictment is sort of the court before the court. And so it's to stop people, prosecutors, overzealous prosecutors from just putting felonies out on everybody. They could charge someone with a felony, but they have to get the indictment of a grand jury first. Sometimes grand juries can be frivolous too, which is the saying, even a ham sandwich can be indicted. So in theory, on paper, grand juries are good for the citizens of Kentucky. The problem is that it's all behind closed doors and that the public isn't allowed to see what's presented, what's discussed, only the outcome of it. And, there's a reason for that, but the reason why it's a problem is because the prosecutor can sway those 12 grand jurors. They can pick who the 12 grand jurors are. It could be their buddies or friends if it's not randomly chosen. And then once they get in this private room off to the side, behind closed doors, they can push either to get somebody indicted on some felony, somebody they don't like, or they can protect their own. So, which is what I think they will do with Bobby Joe Smith. They will try to protect him. They will try to get the grand jury to not. And so the prosecutor or the Commonwealth's attorney, which is just the prosecutor above the prosecutor, are the ones that present the case. In the case of Samantha Ramsey, they actually appointed a special prosecutor to present the case. And so that's the point of a grand jury. It's the jury before the jury. It's only for felony cases. So, because a felony can, ruin someone's life. And so somebody is, accused of a felony just here and there, and they're just throwing it around. The grand jury is used as a firewall against frivolous felony cases. So it's supposed to be there for us. But again, the problem is the prosecutor is supposed to be non-biased, and then the 12 grand jurors make up their own determination. Unfortunately, that's not what happens. The prosecutor has their own agenda, and they'll force their will, and they'll get whatever outcome they seek, even though it's not legal for them to do so. What I find odd about grand juries is that they're not necessary in order to arrest, jail, and charge somebody for a felony murder, with the case of Bobby Joe Smith. If a citizen is suspected of murdering another person, then any police officer who has jurisdiction in that area can arrest the person suspected of murder, jail them, and charge them with the crime. If the charge is a felony, it'll have to be okayed by the grand jury at some point in time, but there's always ways to finagle the grand jury process. If the person is already in jail, it would be easier to get an indictment from the grand jury if the person is in a jumpsuit, they have handcuffs on. Perception is power, which is why they have perp walks. So any police officer could arrest a murderer. Bobby Joe Smith, anybody that has jurisdiction over Bobby Joe Smith can arrest Bobby Joe Smith. But they are using the grand jury to The Laurel County politicians are using the grand jury as a way to prevent Bobby Joe Smith from being arrested. He's going to stay walking around free as a bird. He's got blood on his hands. We don't know if he's guilty or not guilty, but since, that's all buddy-buddy anyways, they're going to, just like Samantha Ramsey in Boone County, they're going to, cover all this up. Now, Bobby Joe Smith is a constable of District 4 in Laurel County. And since he's a constable, that means he's got the same power as a sheriff in his magisterial district. He's like a mini sheriff of District 4 of Laurel County. Sheriff John Root and all of his deputies, any of the county police officers and the state police can all arrest Bobby Joe Smith if they believe that he was guilty of murder. Individual citizens can arrest Bobby Joe Smith as well, a citizen's arrest, but that could be dangerous. U.S. Attorney's Office could do something about it too, issue a warrant, as could local district and circuit court judges. In Breckinridge County, all you need to get a warrant to be issued is a complaint from one of your buddies. You have Shan Embry. So Shan Embry is a corrupt district judge in Breckinridge County. She issues warrants from just a complaint. No evidence is necessary. It can come from a citizen, someone complains, and a warrant is issued. Because of nepotism, it was her buddy who issued the complaint, and so therefore she issues the warrant. So that means district and circuit court judges that control Laurel County can issue a warrant. And so, I also wonder what the warrant against Brandon Stanley is all about. So they could issue a warrant against, Bobby Joe, but they also can issue, warrants out to anybody. Grand juries and regular juries can be formed. Grand juries and regular juries can be formed by nepotism too. So, it's supposed to be random, right? You have a driver's license, you register to vote, they take your name, and then they're supposed to pick 12 people at random. Well, I don't see the process. I don't know where this is coming from. I've never been invited to the grand jury, or I've never had to serve on jury duty ever. And so it's supposed to be a random process, and people are supposed to be randomly picked. But, if you're looking for convictions, which is a lot of prosecutors and judges, they want to brag about how many convictions they have. Well, they want to get their buddies. They want to get, their friends in the jury pile. So then they stack the deck, and they'll get anybody convicted that they want to get convicted. So if all else fails, a wrongful death civil lawsuit can be filed by the family for the one who's responsible for Brandon Stanley's estate, the next of kin, his wife, parents, or his children, or whoever is next in line. So if I'm a loved one and I want to see how this grand jury goes down, I wouldn't put any faith in the grand jury whatsoever. In Boone County, they waited until after the elections to have a grand jury, and then, lo and behold, the police officer who killed Samantha Ramsey did not get indicted. He admitted to the crime. It's on camera. It's on tape. And, he shot her in the chest, and he did not get indicted. So the grand jury was used to bury the felony case. And so, it could be used, it could be corrupt also. If I was a citizen and I wanted to see what was happening, I would be standing outside the grand jury, and I would want to know what happens immediately. If I was part of the media, I would be doing the same thing. You're not allowed inside, but you are allowed to know what the determination of that case is. What happened? Did you indict him or didn't you indict him? Laurel County will not indict Bobby Joe